Nolan, long time no see.
I know it's good to be back at Work the Word. We don't have LV though.
Yeah, parang ano yata, no? Dapat na
Switch. Well, I think he's in, where is he? Cebu, eating.
Yeah, is being experiencing persecution in Cebu, suffering in Cebu for the kingdom. But he'll be back on Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Right before our Ationship collective.
Yes.
So I'm excited for our collective. This is the first ever, right?
Yes, it's going to be a gathering of just entrepreneurial business owners. It's going to be good. There's a lot of people talking about it already. So many, I think there's already 40 specific, different people, different companies, different dreams. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
Yes, I really hope that for those who haven't signed up yet, make sure that you do. It's going to be fun. Kasi syempre may networking na part. But more than the networking kasi, it's a community kasi that you can be part of. It's a safe place, right? And of course, you get equipped also. Like what you said last Sunday, you're going to interview a tech founder, right? So I don't want to preempt anything. But it's going to be exciting, right?
It's going to be good.
Yeah, kasi we're done now with the no? I don't know with the, white pala to, so. I'm done now with the yung di ba, you listen to someone giving you steps, mga how-tos, pero the principles you forget, right? So it's good that you get to interview this guy.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, and then he shares the principles, right? Like everything that he went through, starting.
There's challenges and wanting to give up but continuing to press on, and yeah, it's gonna be good to see the journey.
Yes. Yeah. So it's at 10 a.m. This Saturday. Yeah. So mga 9 nandito na ako, mga 9.
So come.
That's how excited I am.
It's gonna be good. We got breakfast.
Yes. So I'll be here mga 8 pala, 8:30. But anyway, so last Sunday, that was our third installment already of our relationship.
Yeah.
So yung first Sunday, recap lang, quick recap. First Sunday was about having a real day, right?
Days.
And then the second was real talk. That was very interesting yung real talk na yun kasi it's about communication, and if you're not communicating properly, it creates dysfunction in the relationship. So that creates offense eventually, and the relationship gets destroyed. And then last Sunday, it's a very critical topic because it's about not really money, but it's about value.
Yeah.
It's about worth. So how did you come up with that topic?
Because I didn't want us to just do just another money talk, right? Talking about tithing, talking about giving, which is all important, but I didn't want to hit it in a point or speak on it in a point of money, simply just about money. And then when I was thinking about why do we use money, or why do we buy money, what do we? Because everybody has something that they use their money for something specific to them, right? So someone might save up to buy this, or to support this hobby, or to support this type of need or want. Another person may use it for something totally different. And then I would hear discussions, or not with any malice, but sometimes it's easy to compare what you use your money with and compare it to what somebody else uses it with. For example, you might be like, why would they use that to purchase that? They could have done something else with the money. Yet that same person could be using something for what they value, and they could have replaced it with something else more affordable in a sense. So I realized that when we talk about money, it's not really about money, it's about value. And so that's why I wanted to hit value, because if we get past the money, right, and we get to the heart of it, which is value, then we would be able to now use money more wisely, because we've discovered that it actually just represents what we value.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
But pagdating sa value, how can we define it? Para lang at least may working definition tayo. What's our definition of value?
Simply, I think value is just something that you deem as important. If I feel like this is important to me, then I place more value to it.
Right.
If I don't think it's important to me, then it's less value, right? And so that's why the same thing can be looked at differently by two different people. So for me, I don't really value it. It's not something important to my life. To the other person, they might be like, oh, this is really important to my life. And so it could get as trivial as perfume, right? Like, to me, that's nothing. To another person, it's like, oh no, I love this, right? And then it could get as important to, of how you spend your whole salary. If I value just my family, or family is important, then you'll notice that all of my money would be funneling towards that. But it's another thing to say, if it's funneling towards something else. That's why I said, remember, like, you follow the money,
Right.
and you'll find your values, right? And so, yeah, it's just, what's important to you. And sometimes you don't even realize it's important to you until you follow the money, right? Like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I love coffee so much, because that's where the money goes. And it might not even be coffee. It might just be, you love that feeling of, energy or whatever. Yeah, so it's always value.
Right. Pero 1 cup of coffee a day lang ako. Per 20.
I'm the opposite. I can have a coffee at the end. I have at night, and it makes me fall asleep.
Oh. Pero kasi yung sa value nuts, it's very, for a lot of people, they don't really define what they value. But like what you said nga, diba? If you follow your money, where you spend it, how you spend it, then it reveals what you value. That's what the Bible says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also, right? So my question is, how can we know exactly what we value, and how do we know if it's healthy for us? I mean, if we the values we have are healthy, I mean.
Yeah, I think so for example, there's antibiotics, and then now the popular is probiotics, right? Antibiotics is usually used, when you've already felt the symptoms, right? I'm already sick, can't get over this sickness, I need something to take away this, whatever is happening. And so I go to the doctors, they give me an antibiotic, and then whatever that, when it comes in, that helps me, right? Now, some other people now don't go that route anymore, because, and so instead of that's preventive, right? And so they'll take probiotics, which is before the sickness. And I think when it comes to value, you could either see what you value by seeing the consequences, or you could actually, preventive wise, is you choose it, right? Just for example, when we set up our budget, we're trying to tell our money where to go, right? Like that quote say, if you don't tell your money where to go, it'll just go everywhere. So, what we're actually doing after we watched, we studied it, is you're telling your money to go where you value, or what you value. So instead of just figuring it out at the end, I think we can choose our values from the beginning. Look, this is important for me. This is important for me. And if I choose, and here's the beauty of it, there's seasons where things may change, right? So, this right now is super important. So we're going to funnel all of our, funds into this type of area, or this type of area. But it always starts, I think the wisest way is to start with a choice. Choose it, right? Like, and then if you're married, make sure you're choosing it not alone. Like, you making sure,
There should be an agreement. Yes.
Yeah, because then you're gonna have to go to watch the other messages.
Yes. And you have to wait for the next marriage summit. Wala pa tayong date nun kung kailan So, yeah, but it's really important kasi how that we should define our values even before we spend our money. And I like what you said last Sunday about yung the value system of Judas and Mary, right? So we don't have time to go through the whole preaching. That's why nga, you preached last Sunday, diba? So yun yung point. But how can we make sure that our value, I know first step is to read the Bible, gets ko yan. Pero how can we make sure that our values are aligned with what God values?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's, if you think about Judas, he was around Jesus like pretty much 24/7 after he was, he was a disciple, he was a follower. And here's a guy that's around Jesus. yet has a total different value system, which gets him in trouble at the end of the day, right? Sells out sells out Jesus, sells out his loyalty, sells out his friendship and all, and salvation, actually. And what happens was, for some reason or another, he was part of the group, part of Jesus, but he had the mentality of putting himself first, right? Even with his statements, right? It's like, why did you waste that? We could have used that, right? But he's thinking also, because he's controlling the cash box, right? Like, I could have used that. And so when I'm thinking like, then in a sense, it's not proximity that will change your values, because this guy was with them, right? And then if you think about it, it's not really, and it's not just the people who are around you, right? Because he's with the disciples too, right? So it has to be, in a sense, it has to be a choice that you make to yourself, right? That, okay, look, I got to make sure that my values is what God values, or my values is the Messiah's values, right? Jesus, I don't think he even brought that up, right? To know how, let me go to the opposite. I think what happened with Judas was he was looking at Jesus and he said, oh, if I follow Jesus, then it will help me get what I value, right? Instead of, if I follow Jesus, now I will value what he values, right? And so for us to change our values, or to get more of our values, we have to willingly be open and want God's values.
That's really hard, Kasi unang tatamaan dyan, yung selfishness, right?
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, that's why most people, including myself at times, we have a hard time with budgets and with spending, or with this. Why? It's because values always have to be aligned. It has to be aligned. It takes discipline. It takes, it takes, you can't just hope it happens. You gotta align it,
Pero yung what you said kanina, very interesting, because yung proximity nga ni Judas, diba? So he was hanging out with Jesus, he was with, with the 11, and then syempre may mga iba pa dyan. Diba? So it's really that, the choice to see what God values, learn, and absorb those, align your values with His values. And yes, it's gonna take time, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think are the questions I should ask myself every day? Ano about my values? How can I align my values to God's?
Yeah, I mean, those are great questions, because, what do you think? What are some questions that, come up when you're thinking about values?
Kasi, like, for example, when I read the Bible, diba, it's easy to, it's easy to say na, okay, my values are not aligned, right? And then, what I'll do is, sige, I'll have to align my values. So, I'll learn God's values and I'll try it. But, alam mo yun, I think we need to reach that point. Like what you said, you need to make that conscious effort, that choice. Yeah. Right? The Bible says it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. So, we have the choice at liberty to choose those values. Right. Embrace those values. Live your lives based on those values. So, and yung kay Judas kasi, may word na self, like you said, you kept on repeating last Sunday, yung self-interest, right? So I think it's really, does it have something to do with self-denial?
Yeah.
Does it have something to do with dying? I'm asking you, does it have something to do with dying to yourself? May ganun bang factor yon?
Yeah, I think
about values?
When we're looking at our values, whatever we value, at the end of the day, is building up a kingdom, right? Because our values determine our choices. Values determine, pretty much everything. So the question is, which kingdom am I trying to build up, right? Judas, of course, self-interest, because he kept trying to build up his own kingdom, right? And he was using Jesus. He was using that for his kingdom until the point where he realized, like, I can't get anything more from Jesus, so I'm going to sell him out, right? Because he's going to die anyway, so I'm going to help it. And so we've got to ask ourselves, which kingdom am I building?
Right.
And that has to be, like, that has to be a question you ask to yourself in a quiet moment, in a quiet space, because we could trick ourselves, right? This is for you, God. Like, isn't it interesting how most, from any competitive sport, from basketball to MMA, to even singing and all of that, to God be the glory, right? This is for you, God. Thank you, mother. And then they'll just go off at me. Like, whoa, like, where? Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
And so it's easy to say it's all for you, God, but in the quiet, in the quiet times and sitting down and really reflecting, we have to ask ourselves, is it really for God?
I agree.
And it doesn't I have to ask myself that. It doesn't matter if you're a pastor, if you're in full-time ministry. It doesn't matter if whatever profession you are in. And it's a question that you can't just ask once, because it's so easy to start something and be like, you know what, I'm going to start this for God. I'm going to fund the kingdom. I'm going to help the kingdom. And then when it gets busy and it becomes, like life actually hits, work actually hits, all of a sudden it may not be about God. It might be about the ROI, right? Or the bottom line. And so it's something we got to ask ourselves all the time.
True.
Which kingdom am I building?
So, like, for example, diba, on Sundays, right? If you give your tithes.
Yeah.
You give your tithes, and syempre out of obedience yan, right? Pero if you would look at your agenda, right, your desire, why are you giving your tithes? So, syempre without thinking, you can always say, I want to be blessed. So dun pa lang, alam mo na, okay, that's not really building God's kingdom. It's actually yours, right? That you're building. So it's really a choice that you have to. And grabe, very tricky, no? Sobrang tricky yung part na yun. I'm not gonna say it's a fine line, but I think God has made it clear naman talaga that at the end of the day, it's really about Him, right?
Yep.
But we are wired kasi, like si Judas nga, di ba? Talagang self-interest.
Oh, yeah.
No, so I think it's a daily walk, an everyday thing. You really have to ask yourself, am I building my kingdom? Like when I give my tithes on Sunday, is this for, yes, it's for God, given naman yun di ba?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, will it benefit my agenda, my kingdom,
Right.
my want, my desires, not? Or will it benefit God's? There's one, not definition, but there's one statement I read about value, and sabi doon, yung value daw kasi, the benefits outweigh the cost. So, yun yung value mo. That's what you value. Because no matter how big, no matter how much the cost is, because you know the benefit, then okay lang, you value it anyway, right? I mean, you focus on it, you give importance to it. So same thing. When you give to God, there are times that you won't really feel the benefit right away, right? So what happens when you get there? You have to make that decision. You have to make that choice. And Lord, it's about you.
Yep.
It's about your kingdom.
Exactly.
Pastor Nolan, that's very hard. Very hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, kasi, especially if you do it. Kasi the kingdom of God, it's not just a priority.
Yeah.
Like what we were talking about the previous Sundays. God, His kingdom, His righteousness, hindi naman priority yun. It's the center, not just a priority. So everything that we do really revolves there, right?
I think it's, when I was studying this true value, I was going to preach off of Cain and Abel, but it was a little too deep and it was a little too much information, and I didn't have enough time to really craft it well. But if you read Cain and Abel, it's a story of values, because when you read Cain and Abel, right, it says, right, that Cain came and gave an offering to the Lord, right, and then God didn't respect it, right? And then Abel came, and then it says God respected his offering. And the thing that I realized was God never asked for an offering. He didn't say, okay, guys, give me an offering, right? And then so Cain just gave whatever, and Abel gave the best. That's what you usually hear, right? But it was Cain's initiative to give without asking. And it's so interesting that it was Cain's initiative, but God didn't respect what he gave. Why? Because it was just simply something he acquired and didn't have a high value.
Mm.
But Abel gave something that he valued. Why? Because he was the one that planted. He was the one that cultivated. But the mentality of Cain, after I was studying it, was I just availed it. Like it was just something that I got. You know, it wasn't like something that I worked for. It wasn't it was as if, di ba, when you go to a store and sometimes they'll give you a freebie, and usually when they give you a freebie, there's no value to it, right? So you don't really, but if you purchase that, then there's more value. Same thing with Cain. Cain felt through the text of his name, which his name, it means, acquired, that he just felt that this is just something that's always given to me. And then so when he just gave whatever, right? It wasn't high value. And so when we give, it's always a value question, right? And that depended on, and I love it because if you read that passage, God in his mercy again always gave an out, right? Hey, where's your brother? What's going on, right? And the first murder ever, and God was still like gracious, but it was always of value. And then what happens when he gets cursed, right? Then he realizes, oh my gosh, all the things that I value is gone, right? And so I think for us, apart from giving and apart from tithing, because if you don't really figure out value, then when we give and when we tithe and all of that, it's kind of obscure. But if we realize, I can value this because God gave it to me. This sueldo, even though it may be little, is valuable because God gave it to me, right? Or this, how much? Because it's relative, right? Person with 2 million a month will eventually find themselves saying, this is too little. Isn't it weird, right? Because of value. And so for us watching and for us tuning in to work the word, I don't have the easy answers. It's not like, okay, guys, this is how to figure it out now. Live a life of value. But we got to spend time with God and say, okay, God, this is who I am. This is what I want. This is what I do. Is it aligned with what you value? And then start that conversation. Does that make sense? Yeah. Oh yeah, it's gonna take time. That's why I like work the word. That's why I like, that's why Sundays is the start of conversations. It's never one and done. And so it's something that can be talked, for ages. Is all right. Like even with marriages, what do you value? What do I value? Are we aligned? Companies, right? Value alignment. This is what we value as a company. Are you aligned? There's one company where it's based in Hawaii. It's a company where they hunt. I think it's gazelle or deer or something like that. Probably deer. It's a deer that's invasive to Hawaii, and so they hunt that. But they have to hunt at night, and it's kind of like Navy SEALs ops where they're going like a movie. Like once they get the radar, let's go, and they're going out and they're out, but their value system that they say up front always is so high, like it's crazy high, that when someone reads the job application or has the job interview, the values will either tell them, no, I want it or I don't want it. And there's a hard line of people. Right? And so it's the same thing with us. like we got to make sure that we really know, and we have a hard line. And because if you have that hard line, you know when you're not aligned. And so something that we got to do, something that everyone in our families, our business, personal, our budgets, it goes across the board, right? And so hopefully when you find your right values, you could teach me.
Next week, sa next episode, I'll update you.
Awesome.
Oh, bro, it's 25 minutes already. I mean, bilis, no? It's been 25 minutes. But we can always do, we can always extend. It's because you're the pastor, so ano problema. No, but I think this why it's also, it's also important that we are part of a connect group.
Oh.
Kasi you go, you attend on Sundays. It's good, right? Because it's the Lord's Day. And you worship, may corporate worship, and then the word is given, so it's good, right? But like what you said, it's only the start of the conversation,
Right?
So part of that, syempre, your family. You may talk to your family, talk to your wife, and kung yung kids mo, pwede mo nang kausapin, why not, diba?
Yeah.
But after that, you need that group also, that smaller group
Right.
of people that you can be honest with. Kasi before you can make a choice, you need to be honest. You need to be humble, right? And whatever choice you make, you need accountability. And that's, you can find that group in a connect group.
Right.
It's not a group of, perfect people. Although yung sa akin, perfect yung mga nasa group.
Yung akin, hindi.
Kaya walang sa No, but yun important eh. You get to be with these people,
Yeah.
you get to talk about these things, and you guys figure it out together. And of course, we all know that by God's grace, right? Whatever values, the value system we have, whatever it is that is not, it's not aligned yet. We know that as we respond, right? As we obey, as we humble ourselves before God, and we know that God will, do whatever it takes
Right.
to force all those to be realigned. God is a good God, right? And yeah,
I value you.
no, I value you. Pastor Nolan, thank you so much. I hope that next week when LV comes back, I hope
It's
na
gonna be
ulit
good.
tayo.
Relationship.
Yeah.
We're next Sunday or this coming Sunday, we're gonna be talking about, from dating to marriage to, all of that. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, tapos before Sunday, we have our Ationship collective. So it's very, I hope if you're a businessman, an industry leader, or kahit na aspiring, kahit na fresh grad, pwede.
Oh yeah. And here's the cool. It doesn't matter if you're an introvert or extrovert, right? Sometimes you could be an introverted entrepreneur, and it's hard for you to network, right? Because how do I get into that conversation? They're already speaking. We actually created systems where we'll create the conversation for you, right? So you don't have to try to figure out how do I jump into it. We got it. We're gonna set it up so it's easy for the introvert and it's fun for the extrovert. Got it.
So hindi ako mailang sa Saturday. I'll have friends there. All right.
Awesome.